I would like to give a short introduction to the PROF-TRAC project. PROF-TRAC is, I think, the first project that has been contracted in Horizon 2020 in the construction skills program, and it's all about professional multidisciplinary training and continuing development in skills for NZEB principals. So let me come to the overall goal of the project. We started in 2015. I think we will end in February next year, so we have definitely some outcomes that we could share with you. And the goal, the overall goal of our project is that we want to develop and maintain an open education platform for continuing professional development. And this platform addresses specifically technical experts, engineers, architects, building manager, on a middle and senior professional level. And that has to do with the fact that in previous projects of the Build Up Skills program, this was only addressing blue-collar workers, but this is a typically project that also addresses white-collar workers. We also develop a European qualification scheme that can be considered as a part of a lifelong learning process for continuing development and upskilling of these professionals. So let me go to the outcomes. The first outcome that we have is that we developed a roadmap to train NZEB professionals. It started with the mapping of the skills and the current skills gaps in NZEB principles. And the first step was that we didn't start from scratch, but we could adapt methodologies of national build-up skills actions. And already now a methodology is available for any newcomer training provider, and you can find it on our website. And we did actually the development of these roadmaps in 7 member states represented in our consortium. The second step was that we developed roadmaps on a national scale, but also on a European scale, where we specifically focused on similarities or corresponding outcomes of the several member states. The methodology for skills mapping is, I think, one of the cores of our project. So we started with a definition of what professions are involved in NZEB building and renovation, what are the skills levels, what are the relevant technologies on energy management, energy production, reduction, etc. But also what are the interdisciplinary skills that we need, such as communication, economics, social aspects. And then in the second step, national experts mapped the current skills on NZEB principles and technologies, and also the needed skills. And the outcomes is simple, the skills gap at a certain skills level. It seems easy if I tell it like this, but it's not always that easy, because what we learned from this exercise was that the results can depend to a large extent on the expert that's doing the skills mapping. So, for example, if you let an engineer do it, it will be different, I think, than when an architect is doing the skills mapping. What we also noticed that there are different skills for different professions. For example, there's a large difference between architects, engineers, and building managers. So this is a simple example of a result of skills mapping, where you can see that we discriminated some technologies, skills and professions in main subjects and sub-subjects. Here you see some examples for energy management and energy production, and for several professions, trades in these fields. You can discriminate to what extent they have already skills and what are the skills needed. You can fill it in simple Excel sheets, and the Excel sheet calculates the skills gap. And this is a simple example of the exercise that we did in the Netherlands. What's quite interesting, if you look at a more general level, and we try to express it in these spiral diagrams, and what you actually see is that if you look to the architectural professional sector, that the skills gap is to some extent larger than the mechanical engineering sector. So this is something that you can see from these exercises that we did. Another important issue is the development of a European qualification scheme. So we elaborated a qualification scheme for the targeted professions. And this was mainly based on the approach from a former project, the IEE NZEB project, but also from other relevant projects. And in these qualification schemes, we discriminated all kind of technologies that we also used, of course, for the skills mapping exercises. And for each project phase, we give descriptions on the knowledge, the skills that you should have to perform the tasks, and again, for the different professions involved in it. Another outcome is the Build Up Skills Advisor app. This is a simple app that you can use on one hand to see for the sector that you are working in and the profession that you have, what kind of specializations there are, and also what kind of courses are available in your country to come to upskilling and training. And you can fill in your personal profile, and depending on your personal profile, this app tells you to which extent you are fit to do your job and what kind of upskilling and retraining you need. At this moment, the app is operational for the Dutch market, but we are working now as a final part of our project also on an English version, on a European scale, and this app can be personalized or customized for each country if needed. Another important outcome is the PROF-TRAC database, which is online. And this database actually contains all the training materials that we could find from previous projects, and it's all brought together in a repository. It has also a search function, so you can select a topic, you can select the type of projects, building use, the material that you're looking for, also the languages that you're looking for. And in this database you can find all the material to come to an own training program. It has also a new functionality, and that is that trainers that are members of our platform can also upload new material to refresh the content of this repository. To start your own trainings, we have an educational guide, a PROF-TRAC educational guide. It's the basis for the development of national or customized training programs, and this is available for the training providers that are trained in our program, and this can be used as a support to the design of courses. And we already in our project we use it to design the pilot courses that we conducted in PROF-TRAC. And this brings me to a typical approach in PROF-TRAC. We do not do large-scale trainings to large groups, but we train trainers. So, in fact, PROF-TRAC is organized around train-to-trainer sessions. And this is really a core of our training method. And it's done by the organization of a European central train-to-trainer programs, and the goal of it is to create ambassadors for the PROF-TRAC project. And once being trained in the PROF-TRAC project, these trained experts can initiate and organize national or customized targeted training programs, and they can also train other trainers on national scales. In fact, there have been organized 3 train-to-trainer courses as interactive face-to-face trainings on central places all over Europe, and the last 2 train-to-trainer sessions are done in the form of a webinar, and already the 4th webinar has taken place, and at this moment the 5th webinar is train-to-trainer session webinar is going on. All the stages will be, of course, supported by our open platform, and by following this link you can get a nice introduction about how these train-to-trainer sessions actually work. It's quite nice to watch this. And the first conclusion that we had after the first 3 face-to-face sessions and 1 webinar is that a trainer-trainer approach seems to be quite effective to enlarge the impact and to really create this snowball effect. So we actually could see that this approach works. So we only targeted smaller groups in order to be very efficient in working and really have an interactive working approach. So in the first trainer-trainer session we had 22 participants, in the second one 26, that's also a little bit the maximum. In the third one 17, and of course in the webinars we have larger groups. In the fourth session we started with about 70-80 participants, but only 35 were able to get the certificate. So it's a little bit tough to follow it. So from these trainer-trainer sessions we came to national training programs. We started with pilots in our own, with our own members in our consortium, and we had pilots in the Netherlands, Spain, Italy, Czech Republic, Slovenia and Croatia. There was also one planned in Denmark, but unfortunately there were not enough attendants to that one to continue this training in Denmark. During this webinar you get more information about one of the most successful trainings, national training programs that we organized in Spain. So you will hear about it later in this session. And all these national courses were tailor-made as a result of the outcome of the skills mapping that we did and the preparation during the trainer sessions. What's also interesting to see is that that in all these pilots we use different methods. It's summarizing a kind of a mix of e-learning. Some of the courses also had some specific extra preparations, and in some cases they had threshold level to enter the courses. Most of the courses used interactive group working and working on assignments. And what's very nice to see is that in most of the courses we could actually bring together architects and engineers. So the first round as pilots is executed now, but also a second round of the courses is now running. So from these pilots, these courses turned into business as usual courses of our training providers. Moreover, we also had, of course, new trainers trained in our trainer programs, and these trainers also are developing new courses. So, to come to the conclusions, I try to stick in the 10 minutes that I have. My first conclusion is that if you look at the challenge that we have for upskilling of our workers in the construction sector, it's a really massive task. We need to upskill more than 3 million workers, and the question is, can we do that? And I think that the build-up skills actions and the construction skills actions are not only a stitch in time, and especially the train-the-trainer approach in combination with local training providers and with a good support of, for example, European umbrella organizations, they really can create a snowball effect. I think this is quite an interesting approach to come to a massive upskilling of our workers in the construction sector. And again, collaboration with European organizations, umbrella organizations, like we did in PROF with, for example, RIVA, the Architect Council of Europe and Housing Europe. This is very effective for a further endorsement and a further European rollout. And in fact, the idea is that all the national members can act as a training provider, which is quite efficient to do. What we also learned from the TRAC project was that architectural professions and the HVAC engineering brain seems to be covered quite well in our project, but managers of housing companies still need some attention. For example, they need more information about sustainable procurement, but also about occupant engagement. So in the last part of our project, we try also to emphasize this professional group. And finally, last but not least, I think that trainings also should take into account all the end users related issues, especially if it comes to nearly zero energy deep renovations. So this is in a nutshell what I would like to tell you about the PROF TRAC project. Thank you for your attention.